Welcome back, everybody. Hi, I'm your host, Sandy Rosenthal with Beat the Big Guys. And today, my guest is from the same wonderful city that I live in, and that's New Orleans, Louisiana. And my guest is Brett Davis. Hey, Brett.
Good morning.
Good morning. We are going to have a lot of fun talking this morning because we're talking about one of my favorite things since I live in New Orleans. And of course, that's Mardi Gras. But there's a lot more to Mardi Gras than what you see. And we're going to get into that in a whole lot of detail. And first, I'm going to go ahead and introduce my guest to you right now. Brett Davis is the founding director of Grounds Crew, a New Orleans-based nonprofit with a mission to lower the waste impact of the city's many festivals and special events. His organization has a specific focus on transitioning the world's largest free and unsponsored celebration, Mardi Gras, away from its overuse of imported, toxic, disposable, plastic parade, quote, throws, unquote, that are often neglected and create millions of pounds of unnecessary trash in the community's streets, storm drains, and landfills. Well, Brett, I totally can relate. I totally understand what you're talking about. Yet the conflict is so tough. And I'm going to give you an example. My 7-year-old granddaughter was here for Mardi Gras for the first time, but she lives in California. So she was here for Mardi Gras. And I know about the waste and the throws, and I know, but I didn't have the heart to tell her that she can't catch as much as she wanted. And of course, by the time she left, after being here for 4 days and visiting all the major parades, my entire back hall is still full of toys and trinkets and beads and throws, and I don't know what to do with it, but it's still here, and it's a bit of a catch-22. So, but I think that you may have a solution that's going to make all of us happy, and I can't wait, and I'm sure my listeners can't wait to hear more about it.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be invited to the podcast. And what you described is common on two ends: someone who experiences the sort of magic and spectacle of Mardi Gras for the first time, and then someone like yourself who's maybe seen it before and ends up with a lot of leftover throws, disposable trinkets. They don't know what to do with them. Um, and they're probably thinking to themselves, wow, somewhere around the world, many places around the world, we're trying to get rid of, disposable plastic items like straws and cutlery and grocery bags. Yet we come to the city of New Orleans for the 12 days of carnival season, and we are deluged with millions and millions of pounds of disposable plastic trinkets imported from abroad that are purely for fun, purely for a fleeting moment of wearing them, using them, chucking them around in the street, bringing them home, and then they become waste. So it is a bit of a conundrum, and it is something that the nonprofit Grounds Crew is working to try to understand why that problem exists and sort of see a path to get beyond it.
Well, the mic is yours, because it's.
Okay.
I know that I will say this. You're not alone. I'm a member of an organization called Pontchartrain Conservancy,
Oh yeah.
and a week before the Mardi Gras began, I was sent a missive, and my job was to, as much as I can, pick up the broken strands of beads, the ones nobody wants, the ones that lay on the ground. And my job was to collect those to keep them out of the storm drains and out of the municipal drainage system. And I was a good little girl, and I had my bag, and I picked up all my beads. So, and I know that a lot of other people were doing the same, but it's going to take little more than Sandy picking up the broken beads to make a difference. And I can't wait to hear of what you suggest.
Yeah. So, well, let me just launch right into it then. Yeah.
Sure.
Mardi Gras, done in many different ways. What most people think of when they think of Mardi Gras and Carnival this 12-day long celebration is the float parade. These big, decorative trucks with hundreds of people on them throwing items, dressed up in costume. That side of the celebration creates a ton of waste. We're talking about something like 70 parades in that 12-day span. 35 of which happen just a few blocks from my house on the Uptown Parade route that goes down Napoleon and St. Charles Avenue. And yeah, crew organizations, members of local people, visitors from out of the city that come in, they join these organizations, they parade. It's a great time, but it produces about 2.6 million pounds of waste in that 12 days that is just picked up off the street and brought to the landfill. That is not all the waste that's produced during Mardi Gras. That is just what is bulldozed into piles on the street, put into a dump truck, and brought straight to the landfill. And the vast majority of that is parade throws, unwanted parade throws. Yes, you have your sort of tailgate waste, cans, plastic bottles, just general trash. But really, more and more what you're seeing out there is unwanted parade throws. And you have to understand or appreciate, well, why is that out there? And why is that different from when I was a kid and I went to a parade and I used to catch, a small brown paper bag full of a few beads and a few doubloons. That was a good night. Now you go out there and there's so much stuff, you don't know what to do with it, and you're left with just a 3-mile long river of plastic, almost ankle deep, after every single one of these parades. What you need to understand is Mardi Gras is the largest free and unsponsored event in the entire world. That is a big, big and bold, proclamation. What pays for Mardi Gras, this huge free event, is not tickets. We don't buy tickets to go to Mardi Gras. We don't have a big presenting sponsor like a bank or an oil gas company or a telecom company. It is all paid for by the people that are in these organizations, these crews, as we call them. They pay membership dues to be in these parade organizations. They have balls and fundraisers, but more and more what they do is they import through branded packages of disposable plastic beads, trinkets, footballs, frisbees, hula hoops, all this stuff with their crew name on it. And they sell it to the riders in their organization at a significant markup. This is really cheap stuff. And they sell it for a big profit. And that's what pays for all their floats, the warehouses, the bands, the permit fees. And Mardi Gras organizations are very competitive. They all want to be the biggest and the best. So every year they want to get better and bigger. We have, floats with thousands of LED lights and moving parts and fog machines. More and more and more requires more and more and more. So that all that money means more throws. And at some point, I'm going to say 10 years ago, there was a threshold that was crossed where there was so much stuff being bought, sold, and thrown in parades that the demand for it started to taper off, and you ended up with people literally batting these beads out of the way, and they would end up on the ground as waste. And that's unfortunate, because now what we have more and more and more of is this stigma that, yeah, Mardi Gras is great. It's all about excess, but it is synonymous with being one of the largest waste producing events in the entire world. And it's all sort of disposable plastic things, again, for fun. And that is not something that we're proud of in this city. And this whole sort of conversation was really, really reframed when in 2018, as you mentioned, they opened 5 blocks of the storm drain system along St. Charles Avenue and found 93,000 pounds of beads hindering our storm drain system. We're a city below sea level. We have flash floods here all the time. We do not want that stuff in there, obstructing our first line of defense against street flooding. And then also, where's all this stuff going? Those plastic beads in the storm drains, they break down into microplastics. They leach terrible chemicals. into the waterways. And your friends at the Pontchartrain Conservancy know this. That is not good for the health of our local water systems, for marine life, a lot of the seafood that we end up consuming, here in restaurants and at home. We don't want those unsavory chemicals and microplastics in there. So yeah, there has been a huge sort of conversation and response and community sort of engagement around this issue. And what Grounds Crew has done is, what we started off with was trying to get at this through reusing throws, basically going out on the parade route and helping recycle as much as we could. So cans, plastic bottles, yes, but then giving out to the parade attendees these crawfish sacks, these bags that they could put on the parade throws they didn't want to keep that day into these bags. And then we would come right after the end of the parade, get those bags back, and then bring them to ARC GNO, which is a nonprofit for people with intellectual disabilities, where they take in donations year round of parade throws, sort them all by hand, and then sell them the following year. It's a great program. It generates revenue for them. And we want to promote that, but really looking at it, it's probably not the long-term solution to this waste issue, is just keeping this stuff in circulation. It's really, really, poorly made stuff into the line. It's trash that we sent overseas that has been recycled and downgraded into Mardi Gras beads covered with nail polish grade paint, very high lead content, and sent back to us. We don't want people handling that stuff. What we really need to think about is waste prevention. So what can we replace all these disposable plastic throws with that has more value, or is biodegradable, or upcycled from something else? So in 2020, we started the Sustainable Throw Catalog as a pilot program. And the idea here is affordable, eco-friendly parade throws that promote Louisiana businesses and people. And the response to this has been absolutely amazing. To date, we've sold about 385,000 throws that are things that are like consumable items, jambalaya mix from a local company, Camellia red beans, New Orleans roast coffee, biodegradable glitter kits, native flower starter kits, toothbrushes with bamboo handles and Mardi Gras colored bristles. We sell these through an online catalog to people in any parade, but we're now working with 5 different parade crews, including our biggest customer, the largest crew by ridership in all of Mardi Gras, the crew of Iris, 3,700 women. We make branded packages for them. It's been a great initiative, and it's really chipping away at this idea of high value, low quantity creates scarcity in Mardi Gras. And we need to bring that demand back for the experience of the people in the parades and the people watching.
What do you think is the number one thing? And let's say, let's pretend you stumbled upon Aladdin's, the genie in the bottle, and you rub the bottle and a genie comes out. So just what would be that one, if you could change this one thing in either the culture or the mindset, or in with Mardi Gras with regard to waste, what would you change?
Well, that this is a useless effort. A lot of people, when I tell them what we're doing, they're like, "You're trying to take, beads out of Mardi Gras, plastic out of Mardi Gras? That's not possible." But it is possible. There's, Mardi Gras started without throws. There's
Right.
some great photographs of the Rex Parade early in the 20th century. Canal Street is covered with people. Everyone is sitting there, hands in their pockets, watching this spectacle go by. There were no throws.
And now for the video people watching the video, everybody's got their hands up. Pretty
Yeah,
much everybody's got their hands up. Okay.
right. And so, the experience of a parade is not defined by throws or how much you catch. And in fact, you see now a sort of cultural shift back to that, the way it used to be. There are the proliferation of these neighborhood crews like Chewbacca's, Crew de Vue, Crude Illusion, these Marigny Bywater parades, where it's all about crafting and costume and spectacle, making floats that are all powered by hand and bicycle. None of it has to do with parade throws. It's about the show, not the throw. So I would say the number one thing that I would express is that, people out there do not, they want to see their friends marching by in a costume. They want to see those bands. Sure, they want to see something visually compelling, but the throw is probably the least compelling part of Mardi Gras, especially when you've gone to several days of parading back to back to back to back. People get over it, and it's time to recenter that conversation around the enjoyment of the experience and not the parade throw.
In the 1980s, when I arrived here, we caught, as you said, maybe a small bag of stuff, and the beads were glass.
Yep.
They were made of glass, and you had to be careful because they could break easily. And I have seen some of these glass beads more recently in parades and this past Mardi Gras that I went to in 2023. And we also had something that you never see anymore called a doubloon, which was, I believe, it was some sort of metal. It looked like a coin,
Yep.
and those were fairly precious because they were it's a trinket. It's like a memorabilia from a particular float. So it actually had value. And so the doubloons actually were valuable. But that's pretty much all you saw. All you caught, a couple of doubloons maybe, and a couple of beads, and that was about it. And you were happy with the little bit that you caught. And if
Yeah,
you could
and I
even do
think
that.
right. And for the people that are in these parades that pay really good money to have this experience, it is not a rewarding thing for them to buy these packages of throw something, and then watch someone sort of be like, I don't care, and have it hit the ground. I've met and talked to a lot of parade crew members who have left organizations or considering leaving organizations because they don't feel good about what they're throwing. They don't enjoy the experience of throwing something that they watch get ignored. And it's very inspiring to have some people say, until we saw the sustainable throws, until we learned about grounds crew, we were going to leave the parade. But now that we see that there are options of things that we can throw that we can be proud of, we've decided to stay in. And so that makes us really happy. And, what we're doing with the sustainable throw catalog, it's not just an environmental initiative. It is about protecting the infrastructure, the storm drains here. It is about the health and safety of our children, who are the biggest consumers of parade throws. We don't want them handling, touching, even sucking on these lead painted beads, which have Tulane's done a study on the lead content of these things. It's astronomical. It's also about job creation. So a lot of what we do with the sustainable throw catalog is we engage huge volunteer groups from high schools and corporate groups, but we go into the community to disadvantaged labor forces who can't do high skilled things, and we'll get them to put a sticker on one of our little bags of jambalaya mix and then put it inside of something like a little jute bag and tie it up. So very approachable work, and we actually pay them to help us get this done. And it's also about buying local products. Whenever we can, we are finding local businesses, local artisans, entrepreneurs, crafters to make these throws. So it's about promoting Buy American, Buy Louisiana. Those are, the many different buckets that this initiative falls into, and we're really proud of it.
And I'm proud to know you. This is absolutely wonderful. So you speak of Mardi Gras as a free show. Well, as we all know, nothing is truly free. So it sounds to me like the burden of the cost is on the crew members, and that is the people who ride the floats. Now, I can't help but wonder, are they pressured? Are they pressured to buy these useless throws that many of them themselves feel that is a waste of time and money and bad for the environment? Are they pressured to buy them?
Yeah, well, it depends on the crew, but yeah, there is definitely a requirement in some crews to buy one of the crew branded packages, and you have the platinum and the silver and the gold package. And again, these are items that have the crew brand, made at the factory in Asia somewhere, brought over here, and then they highly mark these packages up. The real issue for me comes into when you have a crew, which is a nonprofit organization, when the leadership of that crew owns a for-profit throw distribution company. The
Are there any
largest crew
examples
by
of that?
attendance. Yeah, there's a parade crew here. Their slogan is "Throw till it hurts." The captain of this parade, this nonprofit organization, requires his members to buy from his for-profit throw distribution company. That doesn't seem right at all. And I'm not sure why that's been allowed. And this is also one of the people who sits on the mayor's advisory council on Mardi Gras. There is no part of the city government that runs Mardi Gras who makes rules and regulations. It is the mayor, a couple of city staff, and then all of the heads of these parade crews that make all the decisions about what happens in Mardi Gras. And this is really shocking.
Okay.
Let me get this one in here.
Mhm.
Do you know what the largest crews in all of Mardi Gras pay to the city of New Orleans for their parade permit fee?
I have no idea.
$1,500. That is the most that they pay for all of the sanitation costs, police, road closures, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Something's not right there.
25,000?
$1,500. Yes.
I thought 25,000 was too little.
Right. No, if you're within the window of Carnival, the most you pay, and this is based on how many floats are in your parade, is $1,500.
That's
If you're
insane.
outside of Carnival, a small parade neighborhood organization like Chewbacca's, you can pay up to $16,000 for your parade permit. But the biggest polluters are paying the least amount of money because the city of New Orleans hosts Mardi Gras, which is all fine and good, but why can the city of New Orleans then not set any sort of standards about a waste goal or how much waste is produced? It's a sticky subject.
Clearly, something's wrong there. Clearly, it's unethical on so many levels. I don't know where to begin. Whether it's illegal or not, I don't know. But clearly unethical, and I can see it now. Anybody that comes in and tries to change that culture of waste is going to be met with this question: what's wrong with you?
What's wrong with me? Yeah, right.
They're going to be met. They'll be met with this question: what's wrong with you? You don't like Mardi Gras? You don't like to have fun?
Right.
And that's what you'll be faced with. And what they're doing, that the big guys use it all the time. It's called changing the subject. It's called instead they don't have a good answer for your question, so they're going to attack the messenger. And I don't know this, but I would bet money, and I'm not a gambler, that's the response you would get if you walked down to City Hall and tried to change that culture of waste and tried to make it so that the largest polluters, which are the biggest crews, that they pay almost nothing. They pay next to nothing. That's embarrassing, having to pay $1,000, $1,050. I thought you said 25,000. I heard you wrong, and I thought that was too little.
1,500. Yeah. Well, my answer to them would be, I'm not the only person, talking about this, bringing this message. It is people in the crews. It is people in the community. And you can call me a tree hugger for wanting to, reduce the amount of disposable plastic in our streets. I will happily take that title. But then you also have to argue with people who are finding 93,000 pounds of beads in our storm drain system. You have to argue with people who are saying, why are you sending tens of millions of dollars every year to China, to Chinese factories, to these sweatshops basically in China to import these throws that are disposable instead of spending that money here, at Jambalaya Girl or Camellia Red Beans or, a soap maker in Port Allen, Louisiana. You'd rather send your money to them instead of keeping it here in our local economy. You'd rather create jobs in a factory overseas than employ, people trying to get their GED or with intellectual disabilities here in Louisiana. They have a tough hill to climb there. And yes, Mardi Gras is about excess. It's about having too much to drink and eating too much and showing too much skin. It is not about walking ankle deep in trash after parades. That is not cool.
No, that's a very, very recent thing.
Yes.
So we talked for just a moment about the okay. I want to segue to who's paying for this. In my mind, if the crew members had an idea of how cheap and toxic those throws truly are, and that they're paying, probably 10 times what they're worth, I think they would get mad about that. And especially if they understood the harm being done with the cheap toxic throws. So it sounds to me like those poor crew members, and I've been a crew member once of Iris, I'm very happy to say. I was a
Awesome.
crew member of Iris prior to Katrina. Well, actually, from about '01 to '06. And then I moved on because it was a mother-daughter thing. But anyway, but I know what it's like to be a crew member, and there are a lot of responsibilities. And I think if I, as a crew member, were being educated about the toxicity and the cheapness, and that I paid for that, I mean, there's one great way to get people mad is to find out that they've been robbed.
Hmm.
That
Yeah, no,
usually
you're right.
works.
Yeah, if they knew exactly how much these things cost on the front end and what they're paying for them. And it is surprising. I talk to parade riders all the time that have no idea about the health and safety issues, the lead content of these beads, the little footballs and stuff that have fire retardants and, various chemicals in there. They're always surprised to hear about that. And to me, I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, what did you think they're made out
Mhm.
of? Um,
Nothing
but
works better to mobilize people than to find out, or few things work better than to find out that they themselves have been overpaying for junk, or paying for something that they shouldn't be paying for. Those things are great motivators, and I see you already are moving in that direction. If you want to add something to that, please go ahead.
Well, yeah, I think, there are some people that are aware of that. But like you mentioned before, Mardi Gras is the only event in the entire world where the entertainers are paying to entertain you. And
Yeah.
if they
Mm.
feel like, oh, well, I have to buy the crew package of disposable items in order to help fund the parade a little bit, that might be a consideration for them, and that's going to be a tough one to figure out. What we're trying to do with the sustainable throw catalog is figure out how to subsidize the cost of our eco-friendly throws so that they get more affordable over time and they can start to replace all these disposable items.
Are there any people preventing you from getting your word out, to your
No,
knowledge?
no, not to my
Good,
knowledge, but I
good.
can tell you one thing that does sort of get in the way, and this
Uh-huh.
is a good thing, is that there's an ordinance specifically around Mardi Gras that says nothing in a parade shall convey a commercial message. That is sacrosanct. We do not want parades that are rolling advertisements, again, for big companies and energy drinks and everything. But what that means is when I go to the local jambalaya company or the beans or the soap, I can't put their logo on the throw, and I don't
Uh-huh.
even put my logo on the throw, my nonprofit
Interesting.
logo on the throw, because I do not want to set a precedent of, oh, okay, we can start going to the grocery store to, do our shopping for our parade. Or let's throw frisbees with, this injury attorney's number on it. I don't want that to happen. So what we're doing is we're putting a little bit of technology into each throw. So if you catch a thing of jambalaya mix, you'll see a QR code on here, or the coffee. Every QR code is unique and different. And what that does is it allows the person who catches the parade throw to scan it. It goes to a web page that tells you all about the environmental benefits of the throw. It tells you about the company that we work with locally. It's got great photo galleries of all the volunteers, students, people we paid to help put the throw together. It links to the about page of the producer. And it tells you how to, get rid of all the components. You can compost this, you have to recycle that. And then at the very bottom of that page, it talks about the sponsors who helped make this throw possible, who wanted to attach their brand to this idea of a low waste Mardi Gras. And so that to me is how we're going to get the money in there behind the scenes in a tasteful way to make these throws cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And we're just keeping our sort of fingers crossed. And this is not something we're working on, but it's very likely that there's going to be some sort of tariff on disposable plastic and or goods that are imported from factories overseas that may end up affecting the cost of the existing throws and sort of changing the economy of Mardi Gras overnight. We want to be there.
That's a great segue to my next question was, we know who's paying for this junk, for this toxic junk that's bad for everybody, but we haven't discussed who's making money.
Right. Yeah. So there's always someone making money. It's the throw distribution companies. There's about 4 or 5 big ones, but it also then trickles down to captains of the float. So there's sometimes guys in these organizations that say, you know what, I'm going to buy all the throws for my group of 60 or 70 guys from the throw distribution company. They get it at a little bit lower cost. They then sell it to Mike and Joe and Dan or Cindy or whoever at a little bit of markup. They're making money as well. Yeah. So you're dealing with layers and layers of people who are making money off of this stuff. And of course, they're not interested in changing anything about that process.
Of course not. And one other thing that Brett mentioned today that is very important for our listeners. So Brett commented. He said they call me a tree hugger. Fine, call me what you want. And what Brett said with that was very important, because he knows that just because he's being called a name, he also knows sticks and stones will break my bones. Names aren't going to hurt me. It's going to happen. Whenever you're trying to buck the system, to upset the apple cart, there are going to be people who aren't going to like it. And rather than discuss the issue, they'll go after the messenger. And so you might get called a name. I've been called every name imaginable: a child exploiter, that's probably the funniest one, an uptown woman with nothing to do. You name it, I've been called it. And it always gives me strength, because I know if they're going after me, it means they don't have an issue to stand on. And I find that a very it gives me strength. It's empowering for me, and it needs to be empowering for you too, because it means you're doing the right thing, you're on the right track, and you're absolutely right about what you're doing. But enough about that. Back to Brett. How we doing on time? We're getting a little low on time, but I still want to talk for just another little bit more about like who's making the money, and is there any way you think to we're going after who's paying for it and educating them? Is there anything we can do with the people making money? Or what about City Hall? And what about that avenue? Maybe someone should march down to City Hall and go, how come the major crews are only paying $1,050?
$1,500. Yeah.
$1,500. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, definitely policy can play a role here. Our strategy has always been, okay, we need to provide the alternatives and find some crews to lead by example, to make sure that we can show the light at the end of the tunnel. And then we go back to the policy and say, okay, now we got, the carrot and the stick. Let's get these things into action. Because the truth is right now, Sandy, if you took every disposable parade throw out of Mardi Gras overnight, you would create a funding problem for these parades that, again, have become financially dependent on selling this stuff. So we need to transition away from that, and we need to find some champions in the community who understand this issue. And it does help that I'm born and raised in New Orleans. I used to ride in Hermes, and to have someone who understands the culture, the economics of it, and then you find champions within the community are saying, listen, you're right, we want to see Mardi Gras succeed. And we understand that in order to do that, we need to remove this whole, gravitational pull towards disposability and plastic. We need to bring it back into something that is, more like it used to be.
Those
And
plastic cups, Brett, those
yes,
plastic cups, are they a real big problem, or the beads and the other stuff more of a bigger problem? I remember the introduction of the plastic cup. I even
yeah, the plastic cup, huge
yeah.
now. And people always say, "Oh, well, you can use this throw. I'll bring them home." They throw cups in stacks now, sometimes of 10 at a time. You watch them break
Yep.
apart in the air. They
Yep.
land on the ground. They're neglected. And then what happens is the cleanup crews come with these trucks and they crush them into plastic shards that then immediately the next truck that comes is actually sprays the street. That stuff goes right into the storm drain system,
So your
into
answer is
the canals,
bad.
out to the lake, breaks down, ends up in the Gulf of Mexico, ends up as a little microplastic, a magnet for pollutants and volatile organic chemicals. A little tiny fish eats it, a big fish eats that, and then we eat the big fish.
Right.
It comes right back to us.
So the answer is yes, they're terrible.
They're terrible.
They're new.
And you can only
they're
catch so many. I mean, I get it. Yeah, it's great to have some around the house, to give to friends as a go cup, but there is a limit to how many you can really use. So that's why we want something like a bar of soap made in Port Allen, Louisiana, in this lady's garage that's purple, green, and gold. You catch this, you use it. The next year you catch it again, you use it again. It's all
I
about.
love it.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
love it. So, Brett, we've about run out of time. Is there anything you'd like to add for our listeners today?
Wow. Well, I would just say that, the punchline here is we have the privilege of hosting one of the world's most important celebrations and cultural events. Sometimes we don't even realize that when we live here in New Orleans, but people come from around the globe to witness this thing, and it is spectacular. We've got every echelon of society, coming together to throw a multi-day party. They do it in different ways, but they all sort of embrace each other. It is the sort of thing that we don't want to go away. We don't want to ruin the fun of Mardi Gras. We want to sustain this art form, and we need to do that through reducing its sort of, again, financial dependence on disposable plastic. We've worked our way into this issue. We can work our way out. And so that's what we're working on. And we appreciate people like you putting a spotlight on that work. And so thanks for having us today. Really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. And I'm going to add one thing to that description of Mardi Gras. It's peaceful. It's peaceful. You get all these people come out, and it's a peaceful, fun, happy celebration. And family, and very much family, very, very much. So thank you so much, and I look forward to sharing this. And thank you, the listeners, for being with us today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast on all of your favorite platforms. And remember, no matter who you are, you too can beat the big guys.
Thanks, Andy.
No problem. Stay with me, Brad. I'm just going to stop recording.